and we will be good to go. Yeah, close down the chat, guys. I just want to make sure we stay absolutely focused on the information at hand on this call so we don't get distracted. But guys, thank you for telling us where you are dialing in from. Absolutely love our ASEA family, and this call is for you. So this is a very, very special call. Good evening, America. Good evening, North America. Good morning, Australia. Good morning, Asia. It is a real honor and a privilege to host this call tonight and have the one and only Tyler Norton, ASEA founder, join me on this call. And I love his setting because we're going to have a little bit of a fireside chat. So I love the decor going on in the Norton home there. My kids actually have been hiding, I'll show you here. They've been hiding Christmas stuff, trying to embarrass me. I've just embarrassed myself all over my office as this call is getting started. But we want to have some fun here tonight, but we want to share with you just some really, really valuable information. Tyler really doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to give him a brief introduction. If I read his entire resume, it would eat way too much of this call. So we're just going to give you the basics. Tyler was very, very successful in the insurance industry. He was the youngest distribution officer in a 100-plus-year-old company. It was a tremendous, tremendous achievement if anybody knows the financial services industry. He's been very successful in other business ventures, but then became very well known in the world of strategy. For those that know, his father, Vertus Norton, is considered one of those strategic geniuses, one of the top strategic executives in corporate America. And of course, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. And Tyler learned so much from his father and then became an international consultant in strategy, helping companies move from A to B as smoothly and as efficiently as possible, leveraging their resources. And so, but Tyler is best known and best beloved for being our founder in ASEA, and also really driving what we call our chief cultural officer, teaching us the ethos. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on in the call. But Tyler, thank you for giving up some time in a really crazy, busy time of the year to speak with us here on this call. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Alan. Feel the same. Thank you for making time too.
So what I want to do, and Tyler, if you'll just allow me to do this, many of the people that are dialing in here that we saw dialing in from literally all over the world, they are ASEA associates. They've already said yes to our technology. Many have said yes to our business model. But I want to be respectful for the brand new guests that are maybe hearing this information for the very, very first time. And I felt if I give a quick, maybe 3-minute overview of this technology, what we call the beautiful blue bottle, what all the fuss is about and what we're really going to be discussing here in this call, this conversation will make a lot more sense if there's some perspective around it. And so if it's okay with you, although you're the star of the show, I'm just going to give a very quick 3-minute overview of this technology.
Sure, go ahead.
To understand this breakthrough, and it is a breakthrough, many health and medical experts are calling ASEA Redox one of the most significant health science breakthroughs that we will probably see in our lifetime. You've got to realize that this is going beyond nutrition and ingredients, that we're talking about something beyond your vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and exotic juices, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about something that can impact your health at a depth that really no other supplement has come close to achieving. For many people, this technology is the missing link to better health and vitality. And to grasp it, you've got to realize that your body is the most complex communication network on Earth. Every second of every day, your cells are signaling and communicating critical messages for health and vitality. This signaling impacts every system, every organ, every function of the body. You could say, if your cells can't signal, then little else matters. Now, here's the challenge. As we age and we add stress on there and toxins and all of these challenges we face, we begin to experience less signaling. Our body starts to produce less redox signaling molecules that are the messengers, the signaling molecules. And it's estimated that by the time we're 50 years of age, we maybe have half the signaling that we had when we were younger. And so to put this into perspective, or let me give you an example. Imagine your home's on fire and you call the fire department. And you could have the best fire department in the city, state, whatever. They got the big red truck, they got the firefighters, they got the fire hose, they got everything they need to put out this fire. But what if they have a bad cell signal? What if their 5 bars goes to 4 bars, to 3 bars, to 2 bars, to 1 bars, to hello? Hey, Tyler, can you hear me now? Hello? Okay, they're not getting the signal. It doesn't matter how good the fire truck is if they don't know what the problem is, where the problem is, or how serious the problem is. And while really the whole health and wellness industry have focused on the fire truck, we need a bigger fire truck, we need a faster fire truck, we need a stronger fire hose, a taller ladder, we need more firefighters. Nobody is talking about the critical cell signal to the fire truck. And this technology represents the first time where we can refuel, replenish, restore our body with more of this signaling, more of these signaling molecules, and the results in people's lives can be absolutely astonishing. Another way to think of these molecules, they're literally high energy molecules that are donating their energy into your cells, literally firing up your cells so your cells can function at optimal efficiency. Your body can start to do what it was designed to do. In many ways, work like it did when you were younger. And we have seen this dramatically impact people's health, people feeling better. As I said many times, the missing link to better health and vitality. We've seen athletes experience improvements in endurance and recovery. And of course, we then developed our topical version, Renew 28, our cell signaling gel, which when applied to the skin, people can look younger, redness, irritation, wrinkles, elasticity, improvements, and all of these beautiful things. And so that's the technology that we're talking about here today. Really the world's first and still today only cell signaling technology. I think the last thing I will say, Tyler, is this is backed by 7 patents. I think the last inventory count with the manufacturing facility is now over 1,000 trade secrets on this technology. So we have no competition. We have no copycats. Nobody else in the world has what we have. And that's why we're so excited. To sum it up, the single greatest breakthrough in lifestyle sciences, and nobody else in the world has it. So that's kind of just to frame the conversation here today, Tyler. I hope that was accurate enough for you.
Done a great job, Alan. You've done a great job. And I would add, if you had told me 13 years ago that we would literally be saying what you just said in 2023, that is to say that we really don't have any competition to speak of. And you're not exaggerating the trade secret reference, which is we've had that 13-year advantage. And we now understand not only how to make our product, we've optimized it. I think we'll talk a little more about that later. But someone who wanted to try to head-on compete with us would have a very, very difficult time catching up to how far ahead of the game we are here. So I don't think you're exaggerating at all. And we're in a very unique spot. If you're listening on this call and just getting to know us, I can assure you, you're really intersecting with something unique.
Yeah. I mean, I remember 14 and a half years ago is when I first met you and your father and this technology. And back then I thought, well, maybe if we get 5 years, you often talk about the center 4 squares of the chessboard. If we get 5 years, that's a good head start. And yet here we are now, 14, almost 15 years into this journey, and there's still no competition on the horizon.
I wouldn't have believed it. I really wouldn't. And that's very sincere. I think to be in this position is pretty favorable.
Yeah. Look, since we're on the topic, let's talk a little bit about patents and trade secrets and why we're veering more towards the trade secrets to keep that competitive advantage.
Yeah, early on, I remember distinctly, in fact, with you at several meetings, talking about what we called sustainable competitive advantage. And I don't really know that you can establish a competitive position if you're not having some meaningful advantage that can be sustained. And I think the sustaining portion of it spoke to, how do we make sure that no one can come in and duplicate what we're doing? And early on, we pointed to a patent portfolio where we've invested a fair amount into, and we continue to do that, by the way. But there comes a time when patents and continuing to ladder or build a portfolio of patents may or may not be your best choice in terms of creating what I call widening the moat, actually creating more of a protection around your castle. There comes a time when you want to have certain things that are not publicly published in the form of a patent, unique and nuanced things that help you to make sure that how you make this product, and I'm talking about very detailed things that we calibrate very carefully, things like amperage, voltage, water flow, dilution rate, speed and water flow and dilution rate. And you get really, really tightly calibrated in order for us to deliver the products and this technology to do what you just claimed that it can do. And by the way, we have more science today than ever before telling us it is doing exactly what you're saying. That said, we kind of like the idea of holding this high ground and not letting anyone else come take it. So we use patents to a certain point. We have the world's best patent firm working with us. And then there comes a time when you say, you know what, these things that we now know would be better serving to all of you and to us as a competitive advantage that we can sustain by not writing it in a published patent, keeping it as knowledge that we hold very closely. So good organizational practice would be to have a certain amount of patent protection and then to augment that with a trade secret approach.
And so like Coca-Cola, for example, is totally dependent on trade secrets, not patents.
Probably the most famous of the strategies would be Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
They're not going to patent that and let everyone know what they do, so they manage those. And I think that's a sign of maturity of a business too, because once you really dial in and calibrate what it is you're doing, and you realize the competitive forces you've been able to hold at bay, what it does is represents competitive advantage now to someone interested in building a business here.
Yeah. Well, I was in Malaysia on a recent tour, and our CEO, Scott Aldred, was up on stage talking about some of these little specifics. And I leaned over to Hunter Dean, who's head of our manufacturing. I said, "Hey, Hunter, is he giving away all of our trade secrets?" And Hunter just smiled. He says, "Alan, we went back and did an entire inventory from start to finish, checking off everything. And when I say over 1,000 trade secrets, that's what they calculated up." So we're so far ahead of the curve. It's absolutely astonishing, and a credit to the entire manufacturing process. Can we zoom out for a second, Tyler, and actually talk about the emerging industry, this section of health and wellness that we are actually playing in, the redox biochemistry space? You know, I'm just looking on my bookshelf here, you know, books like Redox Matters. There's one here on redox imbalance. There's this big one that you're familiar with, Redox Life. You know, this whole area of redox signaling, redox biochemistry. The way I look at it is we're kind of where antioxidants were 40 years ago.
I can tell you this: they're in the mid 20th century. The free radical theory of aging really was the basis behind the antioxidant movement. The idea that you had a free additional electron that could do damage, causing oxidative stress in the body. These are all kind of buzzwords that carried the day for the second half of the 20th century. And really interesting to see what's happened in the last even just 10 years, less than 10 years. But because there was so much attention placed on the free radical theory of aging and really what was the antioxidant industry, they kind of missed the other side of the coin. And there's a delicate balance between these reductants and oxidants that represent redox, but the overemphasis of focus on oxidants as being bad, meaning antioxidants being good, actually led to an abundance of marketing and focus on that antioxidant story. There's a body of scientists in the world that began to focus on studying that free radical theory of aging, and actually was called the Society for Free Radical Biology and Science. And that free radical phrase spoke to the idea that free radicals were causing aging. They were damaging cells. They were causing oxidative stress. And so all of the attention was placed there. I thought it was landmark, actually, just a handful of years ago, to see, probably less than 10 years, probably 8 years ago, the Society for Free Radical Biology, which was really all about antioxidant management, changed their name to the Society for Redox Biology. And for me, that was vindicating. I remember, Alan, when I would go online just over 10 years ago, I would find people ridiculing my father's claim around the notion of redox. In fact, I remember distinctly reading on a blog or somewhere, it made me really mad, someone saying that redox signaling molecules as a phrase was a marketing jargon.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was just top spin, that we were just spinning it up to create some, kind of nebulous marketing language that someone might buy as technical jargon. Go to ChatGPT now, go to GPT now, go to any of the AI functions and ask the importance of redox signaling molecules. And not only will they say they're central to life, right? They will affirm at high order that they play an intricate, a very delicate balancing role in the body. And that the whole science community, which then, of course, emboldened the marketing community, way overplayed this antioxidant game.
Yeah.
And really what ended up happening was we missed the second half of the story. And the real story right now, and it is prevailing, there are centers of excellence in the greatest universities in the world right now that have opened up, committed to redox biology and life sciences. So everyone is kind of caught up with the idea that we overemphasized the antioxidant, particularly what I call exogenous or the supplementation of antioxidants, right? Certainly not speaking of the importance of antioxidants in the body. That's part of the redox story. But really what happened is the marketers took it over. You've heard me say before, Alan, that Cherry 7-Up started quoting itself as an antioxidant. So it's been an interesting story between where science and marketing meet. And what's really cool about where we are is we're right centered on where science is. And our marketing message is, in fact, science. Mm-hmm. It's not top spin, and the world is catching up to us. There's no doubt about it. Redox biochemistry and life sciences will continue to grow and is massive as we speak.
It's interesting. You talk about this article that made you a little angry because, well, obviously the passion that we have for what we do, we see lives changed. Your father took huge risks to bring this to the marketplace. And we often hear this idea that a breakthrough goes through phases. It's ridiculed, then it's opposed. Yep. I think it's actually violently opposed as the term, and then it's accepted as self-evident. And certainly for people like you and I that have been on this journey for over 14 years, we remember the ridicule phases. Oh,
I do.
A bottle of salt water from Salt Lake City. There were a lot of jokes around that. And then you get into the opposition phase. We begin to get some traction. And then there's this opposition and people writing blogs, not really understanding what they're writing about, not really understanding this emerging area of science. But I think, Tyler, what's got me so excited, more so excited today than ever before, is I truly feel we're now entering this place of acceptance where our technology is becoming self-evident. This new area of science is becoming self-evident. And I think one of the clues here is, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the early days, it was hard to find a university that would even partner with us to do research. And yet today we have universities literally around the world calling us saying, we want to partner with you. We know what you've got. We know you're ahead of the curve and we want to partner with you. So let's maybe talk a little bit about some of the universities we're partnering with and the research that they're seeing.
Yeah, maybe a quick anecdote, Alan. We are doing some work. We've got several universities at these centers of excellence around redox that were just what you said, skeptical, a little bit hesitant, pulled back from maybe doing some work with us. And what we found is they've gained more confidence that what we have is legitimate and very unique. You can see them going through that, almost a micro version of that same thing, maybe a bit of a ridicule, skepticism, maybe even a little bit like, hey, we're happy to take your money and do the science, but we don't anticipate anything. Mm-hmm. And then our most recent story is we got a call from a research team at a university in Australia saying, we did our first set that you paid for. So we paid for 3 sets of something to be done. They did the first 3 sets and got a result that they weren't expecting. And the lead scientist on the team called us and said, we were so skeptical and doubtful that maybe we had caused some protocol error. We went back and did it 3 more times. So now you have 3 positive results with a very significant outcome. And incidentally, this is science that no one in the field knows about. We've never talked about what I'm talking about right now. And they came back and did it 3 times again. The lead scientist was then reported back that the results were exactly the same. And then he asked them to do it again. 9 times before he was willing to call us and say, this is happening and this is real. So to your point, we've gone from being kind of these outliers that are, operating with some, real marketing story as opposed to science.
Yeah.
And now we're reaching out to some of the best known scientists in key areas that we know are correlated with what we're doing. And they're immediately saying, hey, we're interested in working with you. And that's a really unique pivot for us. And I think portends real opportunity for people looking to participate in this. I mean, I'm being very serious. We're on to something, and have been for many years, that's now the science community is saying, wait a minute, this is unique. This should not be happening. These results are compelling. And I can only tell you that the next 10 years are going to be dramatically different than the first 10. And the first 10 have been great.
Well, can you imagine, the success that we've had, over $1 billion in sales? I was looking up something, I think now we're at 500 million servings of ASEA Redox. We've had phenomenal success, lives changed in profound ways. And that was through the ridicule and opposition phase. And that's what's got me so excited as we move into this acceptance, self-evident phase, really where the science actually begins to catch up with our technology. How rare is it? Normally a product evolves from a body of science. This is a very rare situation where a product's actually ahead of the body of science. Have you ever seen that before?
Not that I can recall. Maybe I always laugh and think about penicillin. I mean, think about it. Somebody goes around with mold, just about 100 years ago. And of course, the acceptance curve was not there. In fact, if there wasn't a world war where the need for it became so evident, its both development and scalability would never have happened. But think about how elegant some of the greatest life science discoveries are, and how counterintuitive they may well be to the general working knowledge. I recently listened to an article that said that, the way the world works with learning new things, it would be safe to say that 100 years ago, the science we were claiming was in fact science fiction, which is an interesting thought process, right? Because whatever we claim as science today, we're learning more. And it almost means that the prevailing science of 100 years ago, is almost like it was science fiction. In other words, we were doing the best we could with what we knew. Oddly enough, and I think it's both fortuitous and even maybe a little divine, if you're willing me to say it that way, we bumped into a technology that I feel was well ahead of the science community. And if you know anything about that whole curve of development, it takes decades for acceptance and awareness to catch up with something, to say nothing of the difficulty of scaling it. And I say that because what if we could only make 1 liter of this at a time? And originally, when we found these patents, that's all we could do. It's one thing to find a really unique mechanism of action in the body, like we found through redox signaling molecules. It's another to be able to reproduce them at scale such that we can provide them readily to a world that needs them. And I think equally as amazing in the story of ASEA's last 10 to 13 years of understanding that mechanism is the fact that we can scale it. That we can literally make it to scale, and we're increasing the quality of it. We're increasing the effectiveness of it as we learn more and more about it. It's really a cool journey that we're on, and one that deserves the attention of both any individual person who loves another, that cares about their health. This is relevant, to say nothing of the science community.
Dr. David Silverman calls it a gift for humanity, a technology that the world deserves to know about.
It's true.
So we talked about the universities, and you're not giving away anything on this call, but you're deep in study with, there's studies going on right now for us to hopefully announce in the future. But we did have a pretty big announcement a couple of months ago around a very, very important subject, and this is the NRF2 pathway. And our studies showed 2 separate universities increasing NRF2 activation by up to 60%. And NRF2 has, it is the you'll have to maybe correct me in the details here, but it's the protein that goes into the nucleus that signals the production of the most powerful antioxidants known to man, glutathione, for example. Right. That is a huge, huge study.
Yeah, candidly, Alan, to me, it it is also, and I used this word earlier, it's landmark for me. And here's why. I have thousands of letters literally in my office at our headquarters from all over the world, just as surely as we have people from all over the world on this call. And when you get to your comments earlier, 35 million bottles sold of a product that was ridiculed as just salt water, it just doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. It's either doing something or it's not. It's that simple. And if it's doing something in the body and we're trying to better understand that mechanism more and more, you've got all this body of anecdotal reference, letters, gratitude, human beings, real families, children, spouses, grandparents, and we're getting these letters and we're doing our best to manage the maze of saying, okay, this is doing a lot in the body. To have this study come out this year and point us right at this genetic pathway, which is the NRF2 pathway, which is the absolute regulatory pathway for inflammation in the body. And if all you've got to do is do the transitive property, what is inflammation linked to? Just about every negative thing that happens in the body, on every organ, on every cell, at every level, can be linked back to and tied to inflammation. Well, the regulatory role that NRF2 plays, if you can up-regulate that role, meaning turn it on inside the cell. This is not exogenous, meaning exo, meaning coming from the outside. What if you can actually turn on a cell through these signaling mechanisms that we talked about that allows for endogenous or internal creation of the most powerful, like the master antioxidants in the body? And what's interesting is it's both using reductant and oxidant technology to do it. It is the Redox story.
Yeah.
The studies came back with massive results. The same science community I was talking about earlier put a blocker on the cells, meaning tried to mimic a cell that was not well.
Yeah.
They call it a blocker technology. So they actually suppress the endogenous creation of these power master antioxidants in the body to mimic a cell that is not well, and then applied both to the skin, Renew 28, and as well as ASEA Redox supplement, our beautiful blue bottle, and came back with astounding results that were overcoming the blocker.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like putting an exclamation mark on a lot of years of doing good in the world. It was the moment when the ridicule and opposition, I was like, okay, here we go. Truth prevails.
Yeah.
And the really other beautiful thing is it's kind of like it's a guiding light now for us. We're getting results that are narrowing the range of spend and investment in science to areas where we're increasing the probability of better understanding it.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled about it because we're already seeing it. Our second round of science, we're getting additional feedback. We then iterate with the science community. They give us exciting insights that might be worth the next round of studies. And all of a sudden, you're starting to open the whole world of what this represents.
And I think, to me, this is really where it gets exciting, because NRF2 is huge. It's such a significant pathway. It's so closely linked to the master antioxidants, the endogenous antioxidants, that, again, such a knock-on effect into the inflammatory effect in the body, or anti-inflammatory. And yet that's still just one key in the piano. And yes. I always remember you saying, you know, what makes this technology so unique, I referenced at the beginning, every cell, every organ, every system, every function of the body, signaling is foundational to it. And I always remember you saying, it's like this technology plays all 88 keys in the piano. And the NRF2, as important as it is, and there's some companies hang their hat on that one key. Okay, it may be middle C, it may be pretty important, but there's a lot of other keys, and that's what you're referencing here. We're not going to explore B flat. Maybe I'm getting too musical here, but we're exploring a lot of the other keys, because we know this is a cell signaling technology, but we now know for absolute sure this signals at the profound depths of the genetic level. And
that's right.
That's an absolute game changer. And so these other studies are now looking at these other keys. And that's where, when we hear these stories coming in of lives changed, it's not just how remarkable they are, it's how different they are. Every system, every organ, every function, 88 keys in the piano. That's what's so exciting about this technology.
If you go back to the early days, Alan, if you know anything about taking this through a pharmaceutical route, one of the challenges of that route is they force you to pick the key.
Yeah.
They literally force you to say, what is this that you're representing? What is the key it plays in the body's piano that makes a difference? And one of the things I feel like my father was prescient about was the notion that to do so would be to narrow the implications and impact of what we had. And he took a great risk by turning his back on those traditional channels, which, by the way, are terribly expensive, over-regulated in many regards, and frankly, oddly enough, may not want what people need to get to them. It's a really interesting model. It's not all pure-hearted, as we all know. But now what we're seeing is, if using your fire analogy, if NRF2 is the fire chief, and if the signal that it sends to the fire chief is to translocate to the nucleus and create an army, call in the army to address the fire, and if I can make more fire chiefs active at a cellular level, which is the cascading effect of our product, high energy molecules ready to provide a signal that are being introduced to the body, already native to the body. Those high energy molecules are so small, they're able to enter a cell. When they enter the cell, they're now in the milieu of the cytoplasm, and they alert a fire chief to a problem. They release that chief into the nucleus, and now you're upregulating a response. Here's the cool part. There is a cascading and signaling effect that then takes over from there. It's not just a single cell, of course. We are a multicellular organism. And so there's been years and years. If you're an evolutionist, say whatever you want. If you're a creationist, it doesn't matter. The point is, we know that when a cell is operative, it's influencing and impacting its neighboring cells. And to the degree that I can turn multiple ones on with these redox signaling molecules, which we create outside of the body, stabilize into a bottle, and provide as a supplement, those then are awakening a whole response at a cellular level that's cascading well beyond any one cell. Yeah. You know this, we have to speak about a single cell experience, but our cells are firing all day, thousands into millions of times, and even just small amounts of time. So my story there is to have both all of the anecdotal reference to your point of how it's helping topically, or people with skin issues or challenges across the body that are broad and diverse, to your earlier comment, which I thought was well said. The diversity, the range of impact. Now we can see, well, of course, we're affecting the cell. Everything you have, every organ in your body, whether it's, you name any tissue, it's cellular. And those mechanisms are universal in each cell, regardless of its differentiated role, whether it's a heart cell or a lung cell, right? Doesn't matter. And to have something like that so universally needed and accepted and relevant, well, it's probably a 180 key piano. Yeah. It starts to make the piano really wide. Yeah. And that's why the stories that we've gotten back over 14 years really put me in a position where I'm like, look, this isn't on trial anymore, right? Like, I'm not asking anybody's opinion. If you're exposed to this, it deserves your attention. Yeah. It really does.
Yeah, beautifully said. Hey, let's talk about the very first story that you were exposed to. You've shared it quite a few times, but I love it because here you are, the son of Vertus Norton, and yet you were a skeptic to start with. And it's very clear now you're a believer. But when you started your journey, you were a skeptic, and I'd love you to share just a little bit about that story and the transition that you went through in that process.
Well, I think the word skeptic is probably nice. I mean, honestly, I was doubtful and fearful. Yeah. It wasn't just like a little skeptical. I was doubtful and fearful, and I'll be quick and tell you why. One, what was this going to do to people? Was this going to be additive? Was it going to interact negatively with someone or something? And so I was concerned about it. And doubt and fear, as I've shared before, kind of are kissing cousins, right? They kind of roll together. My dad was becoming increasingly convinced. I was becoming increasingly doubtful. It wasn't until I was made aware of a neighbor of mine dealing with a very, very serious challenge, who had reasonably wealthy in-laws that had spent untold amounts of money flying him around the world to specialists to solve it, with really no success. And I became aware of this through a church and religious organization commitment that I have, and where we were just discussing people in need, whether someone had just lost a job or was in need of help with something small. And this one was brought up as a big one. And there was a question as to, well, what do we do? And even in my skeptic, disposition, I reached out to my dad and said, Dad, do you think this could help? Now, I should tell you, my father, once he becomes convinced of something, can cross over into the realms of the guy that's maybe wrong, but is never in doubt.
Yeah.
Which as a teenage boy, with him being my father, was not my favorite characteristic of his. So when I reached out to him, he said, of course this can help. And I said, how can you be so positive? Like, how, you don't know? And he said, well, I have the safety data. I know it's not going to hurt anybody. And I think it has the potential to help. The challenge this neighbor of mine had was so significant that to turn my back on it or just do something minor, to watch the kids for a night or something, it would have felt so disproportionate to the need. So I thought, well, this is probably worth something. If I were in those shoes and was looking for anything to help me, I would probably consider it. I've told this story untold amounts of times, but I was so scared and so fearful and doubtful that I got nervous sharing it directly with him. And in my first true network marketing experience, I shared it with the leader of my church, and then backed away and let him share it to my neighbor. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was foreshadowing a networking commitment.
Yeah.
To the credit of my church leader, he was willing. He was willing to share it. He asked me, what is it? I said, I don't know. He said, who gave it to you? I said, I can't tell you. I was so scared. And it's kind of become comical now. He walked it across the street to this neighbor, literally. They lived across the street from each other. And I withdrew myself for fear that maybe it was negative. And 3 months later, he's calling back needing more of the product, which was, mind-blowing to me. When I finally made the connection direct and said, listen, I'm a little embarrassed. I was the one that gave this stuff at the time to this neighbor. And he got emotional and said, are you aware of what I think you've done for me and my family? And I had to answer to him, no. And I think the point is that, if you're on this call right now and this sounds odd, too good to be true, you feel fear or doubt to share this with people you love or know, or even to try it yourself, the first thing I would tell you is I don't blame you, and nor do I even question that. I think the only way to truly come to your own basis of understanding and belief in this is through the process of actual experience. And in this instance, this was my very first one. And I invited him to my home. I asked him to tell me what had happened. And when that you cross over into that what if space, that liminal space of what if, nothing's going to be the same. And yet you still kind of want to go back to your disposition of disbelief. But then someone literally in front of you, a real person, not some marketing machine or engine or video or something produced, but like a real human being, is saying, I introduced this into my situation, changed nothing else, and my situation is improving. And Alan, I'm embarrassed to say this. I was so skeptical. I invited them to my home. I dropped a tripod in the family room and I recorded the whole thing, listening to them talk. And that was my first experience that kind of cracked the what if moment for me. Mm-hmm. And I moved from fear and doubt into a place of hope. And hope started to engender an interest in investing more in it, to the sense of saying, hey, if this can help one, why can't it help more? Those additional experiences started moving hope into a place of belief, moving further away from skepticism, doubt, and fear. Belief always precedes action. Think about it. You wouldn't get up in the morning if you didn't believe you'd make it to work. You wouldn't do anything without some measure of belief about what it might yield and go to. You wouldn't eat food if you didn't think you could digest it. I mean, I think we underestimate the power of belief. Yeah. Belief, all meaningful action is preceded by belief. And that's what happened to me. I went from fear and doubt into hope, invested in hope, started to see real experience that was drawing me out of hope into a place of firmer belief. And that belief then ultimately led me to the place I am today, which is action, meaningful, massive action, like running a business in 33 countries, saying this needs to be in the hands of every person I can get it into. Yeah. And it's been a beautiful journey. One I'm not embarrassed of that I didn't believe in the beginning, because I genuinely think it sounds too good to be true or too simple, but it's as profound as we're telling you. And that's an experience that I'll never trade. It was really my own genesis of how I got into this.
And then since then, obviously you mentioned a global business, 33 countries around the world. You've been all over the world with ASEA, and people obviously come up to you and they share their story with you, and that's just it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. What are some of those? What was it like when people come up to you and tell you how this technology has changed their life?
It's sacred, period. It's sacred. When a person, probably one of my most favorites in Lexington, when a woman walked up with her husband, who, and I would have to say this, there's no way they were networkers. They weren't coming from the industry. Very, very noble, regal looking man. And I noticed, I'll never forget this, is one of those moments where you just kind of zoom in, and I noticed his bottom lip under a very, very well-groomed, beautiful white beard was quivering. And he had yet to open his mouth. And his wife noticed, and she put her hand on the small of his back and said, "You need to tell him." And then this gentleman proceeded to tell me of his challenge, similar to my neighbor, and began to speak with great emotion about how this had blessed his life. And yeah, I mean, when you have a moment like that, that's real. And I've shared this, I believe, with you and a couple others over the years. It was so real that I needed to find a place to compose myself, because there's just no topspin about it. It was real. And if you're listening and think I'm making this up, I get it. I'm a skeptic too, but I can tell you this is real. And those are the moments when you get paid, as Cindy Buck says to me and has said, you get paid in goosebumps, because you just almost, my dad, I've walked in on my dad, Alan, where he's had letters, he's sitting in a chair. It's kind of the way you would anticipate. It's like my family room right here. And he's sitting in a chair and he's got 4 or 5 letters that are torn open and resting upon one another. And then he's holding one. And I walked in one day, this is years ago, and he was emotional. And my dad's not that way. He's not given to that. But he just looked at it and he shook it. And he was embarrassed that I was catching him emotional that day. And he handed it to me and said, "What do you want me to do about that?" It's his exact words. He goes, "What am I supposed to do about this?" And I read it, and it was a family sharing a very profound experience. And when I looked up over the letter and saw my dad, his lip was quivering, and he goes, "What do you do about that?" And I said, "Dad, you just keep it going. You just keep it going, because it's got a life of its own. It's beyond you or me, Alan. It's meant to help people.
It's bigger than any of us. So let's talk about your dad, the beloved Vertus Norton. I remember my very first meeting with Vertus in May of 2009. And I saw that same lip quiver when he was telling me the story. And I could tell that this was a man that had just tremendous passion and belief, and conviction that this was something the world deserved to know about. And he'd made some sacrifices and took some risks to bring it, the distribution method. Well, let's talk about the distribution method that we've chosen. Network marketing, word of mouth marketing, referral marketing. I actually like to call it educational marketing, because this product does require some education. It requires some personal experience. But that was a risk for your dad.
Yeah, probably bigger than anyone on this call realizes. Very traditional consumer packaged goods background, rolled out product. My dad created Crystal Light, for those of you in North America that know that product. He wanted to call it Crystal Falls. And Jim Kiltz, who's probably the most storied CPG CEO in the world, argued with my dad and wanted to call it something light, X Light. My dad said, "Call it Crystal Falls," and they landed on Crystal Light. So you got a guy in my dad who ran a $1.7 billion beverage division for General Foods, which later was merged with Kraft Foods, which is one of the largest food companies in the world. Here's a guy that knows how to take a product to market through traditional channels. And it took him 0 time to realize that it could not go through traditional channels. And we're talking about a person who understands those channels well. That said, he did not understand this channel. And by this channel, I mean, those of you listening to this right now, you making a conscious decision to invest and arm you with this unique technology. Why? Well, let me ask you this. If you were in the grocery store and pulled off a bottle on the aisle, where do you categorize this? Does this go in the bread aisle? Does this go in the drink aisle? Does this go in the pharmacy space? Where does it go? And when it's there, how do you position it? There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in the world. Certainly the flavor's not going for it. right? I mean,
Yeah,
we
let's
joke
let's
about,
stress let's stress, Tyler. Our seven patents and over 1,000 trade secrets aren't to protect the flavor.
yeah,
Uh,
we're not trying to make something taste good, which incidentally is its own evil empire, using taste and sugar and all those things to get people to buy and take and
yeah,
consume things. If we correlate those two things together, I think we've got a problem. But somebody fortuitously, you think about these inflection points, these moments in time when someone suggests to my dad, a man who knows how to take a product to market, 40 years of history doing it, have you ever considered this approach? And there's a story in the Genesis video of dad sharing it with 40 people on a focus group level to get a feel and how it went and expanded from there. And he knew there needed to be a story behind it and a personal conviction and an experience that would carry it forward to help it find the people that needed it. And it changed his life, Alan.
yeah,
Not the product, not the product. The people and the channel changed my father's life. The product changed a lot of other people's lives, but all of you changed my dad's life. You softened his heart. You expanded his worldview. You made him more tolerant and enjoyable in and of himself. He became more tolerable. He was softer and kinder. And his genuine interest in just a common person dealing with a real challenge became right in his fairway. And when you're a wealthy executive, coming from very storied industries and brands, your interest in the one tends to get lost.
mm,
And all of you in this channel turned my dad's heart to the one and mine. But it changed his life. And it's the best decision he ever made. Buying the patents is not a better decision my dad made, honestly, than choosing to go network marketing. And we are deeply committed to network marketing, period, full stop.
yeah.
No one is too good for this way of business. No one is too good for this industry, and no one is too good for ASEA, period. I don't care what your education is. I don't care what your background is. You are not too good for this industry. And when you marry that with a science-backed, unique product, competitively advantaged like nothing in the world, you're at a choice point. And that is this worth some of your time? Is this worth someone you care about? And the fact of the matter is, it is. And if that sounds like top spin, it's not. It's just real.
I walked away from a master's in international finance. I just started a master's when somebody introduced me to this business model. And I really fell in love with the business model, the pure economics of the business model. It took me until I found ASEA to find the correct coming together of the product, the company culture, and the business model, because all three are very, very important. It's like a three-legged stool, if you've only two legs, you're going to fall over. And but sometimes the network marketing industry, Tyler, and I'm sure you saw it in your professional circles. I'm sure you'd been approached before, to sell a product or something like that. It sometimes gets a bad rap because I think it's done unprofessionally. And you a couple of years ago, you started talking not network marketing, but next level marketing. Let's take this industry to the next level. Do you just want to share briefly? We've got about what do we got here? We're about 10 minutes or so before we're going to wrap this call up. Could you share just a little bit about what you mean by next level marketing?
Yeah, I had a really unique experience several years ago, sitting quietly and pondering where I hoped we would go as a company. And I was staring at the letters MLM, multi-level marketing. And I kept saying, the second you say network or MLM, multi-level marketing, people have an immediate response to it. And then I thought, what if we move from MLM to NLM, to next level marketing? What would that look like? And I started sketching words on a page of saying, what is the paradigm shift that would have to take? And it was words like this. It was, we would need to move from trying to convince people to being convincing in multi-level marketing's past. We would need to let that go. Yeah. And we would move from convincing to being convicted. Deep, abiding conviction of what we're meaning to do. The sense there, very nuanced, right? The sense being that if you believe in what you're doing, you're never on trial. If you're trying to convince people of something, it might come from a place where you don't even believe it at all. Think of the person that works at a car dealership that has never driven a car that he sells every day or she sells. So that was the first one. And it started to cascade from there. And it was things like you would move from just transactions to transformations. You would show real interest, not only in the transformative power of your product set that you believe in, but the transformative power this industry and business has on people. I just shared it, my dad. It doesn't matter what level of the business you're in. It awakens you to the plight of an individual human being. It is the most sacred form of genuine, almost a ministry, if you will. I'm sorry to say it that way, but it's like you become invested and interested in someone else's pain, which was the third dimension. Move from compensation to compassion. If we were really a next level organization, we would be highly compassionate. That means, that's a compound word, right? Calm meaning together and with. Passion meaning suffering. If you look at the etymology of that, it's suffering. You would become very schooled in what it feels like to suffer with someone else. That suffering that they were experiencing would move you to action from a place of belief and compassion. So I worked on it for weeks. I just kept saying, what else would we do? We would move from income, overly emphasizing, over promoting the income, to the joy of what it means to become, to really changing your life and saying, I can look back and say, I'm a better speaker. I'm a better person. I have higher character. I have deeper compassion and empathy for other people. You would move from trying to get others to do something, like just convince them, persuade them, and get them to do something, to really becoming concerned, am I doing something for others? Am I able to actually make that my primary emphasis? And the cascade went all the way down the line. It was things like, transactions to transformations, income to become, compensation. The industry's indictable. All they do is run around waving the flags that you're going to be some country club member in a week if you just sign here. It's a lie. But what can happen is both compassion. Now, be careful here. What I'm trying to say is, are transactions bad inherently? No, of course not. Is being convincing bad? No, not at all. Is income bad? Not at all. In fact, if I have a mission of anything in this life, it's to get good people more money. Because I'm tired of bad people having more money and their ego systems instead of ecosystems, where it's all about me, ecosystem, versus saying, no, I want to use my money to promote an ecosystem. Eco coming from the native word oikos in Greek, which is the whole house. Everyone wins and benefits. So anyway, I know we're running out of time, but when you have a next level technology, and there is no question, we are a next level technology company. We are a biotech company that chose to distribute through you, period. If somebody, what is this all about? It's a biotech. And we chose to distribute it through humanity, with humanity. It's that simple. What if you have a next level product, next level technology? Is it possible to have a next level corporate soul where you engender these beliefs and kindness and civility and concern and stop over promoting, getting others to do something or being able to present your opportunity? How about just be present?
Yeah.
So, those are slippery notions a little bit, but what I've learned around the world, regardless of the culture, people get it like that.
Yeah.
And I believe the industry as a whole has migrated to the least resistance. Let's just talk about money. Similar to what my kids are dealing with social media every day. It's like the optic. That's another one. Move from optical to actual. Mm-hmm. Stop letting what something looks like control and carry the day. What if it's actual? What if it's just real? What if I'm working inside out to change my character and the way I treat and see other people? So that's something we call our ethos, which is the distinguishing spirit of our culture. And I'm trying to create new lexicon or language about what it means to move that paradigm away from the old world approach of network marketing into an MLM and move to the next level, NLM. What does that look like? And I think it's next level technology married with a beautiful human group of people committed to these higher orders of living. And then what happens? Well, if you're convicted, really believe it, I guarantee you'll be convincing. Yeah. And if you're transformational, I guarantee you'll have transactions. And if you're really worried about becoming and overcoming as a human being, I guarantee you'll have income. So none of those things are bad in of themselves, but to make them the aim as overemphasizing them as both aim and method, I think diminishes the higher order.
Yeah.
And I think there's a parallel to our product being next level and our people being next level.
Gosh, I hope, and I hope our listeners here, we've gone almost an hour here, and we haven't lost one person. Over 800 people on our call here listening to every word you are saying, Tyler. And I hope people are understanding. Our good friend Mal Sword will say, "I don't think I'll see another ASEA in my lifetime." And when people ask me, Alan, give me the magic pixie dust of success. Maybe at a convention or meeting someone, and they say, give me the secret of success. I'll tell you, don't take ASEA for granted, because ASEAs do not come along very often. And I'm not just talking about this astonishing breakthrough technology. I'm talking about exactly what you spoke about, the corporate, the ethos, the culture, this concept of next level marketing. It's these coming together that makes this such a unique proposition for people that I certainly hadn't seen in my entire career until I stumbled on ASEA, and I truly don't believe I will ever see again. We have something very, very unique in our hands.
Well, Alan, let me just say this. I think I can speak for everyone listening, certainly those that have been with the company for a long time. You are a true ambassador of that ethos, and you are loved and appreciated by so many on this call for the way that you lead, for the generosity of your leadership, which is a really interesting concept, leadership generosity, where what you do embodies this essence of next level, because I do think that you've put a lot of time and energy into this company and benefiting those on the call so that they can learn and use language and other things that you spend so much time, and you're very gifted. And I say to you at this special time of year when our hearts soften a little more around the world, how grateful I am for you. You're a dear brother and a dear friend, and you're a high impact person. You impact the world for good. And it's just an honor to roll with you, period. It's just great.
Thank you very much, Tyler. I appreciate those kind words.
I mean them.
As we wrap up, we're coming into the end of 2023. We've got 2024 to look forward to. I think you and I have had some conversations offline on this, that there's just something stirring in us that this is going to be a big breakout year for ASEA. Where do you see us going, Tyler? I know it's a big question.
Well, I'm mindful of the time. I could take another hour talking about that.
And probably everybody here would love you to, but
let me just say this. The first thing is, where are we going in 24? If I could restate the question, I would say, where are you going in 24? And by you, I mean each of the individuals on this call. I love new beginnings. I love the new year. I love the introspection on the blessings and gifts and positive relationships and all the things that happened this past 12 months. Because as you know, on any given day, it can change.
Yeah.
Health-wise, life-wise, any number of things. We're seeing a world that in many regards, and if I could, can I just talk to this concept? There's a very interesting interplay between the word amity and enmity. And enmity is mutual hatred. And amity, very similar language, very etymology is similar, is friendship and brotherhood. And I see enough enmity in the world right now, and I think we all do. And the first thing I will say is 2024, we should be powerful agents of amity, not enmity. That's where we need to start. If there's anything in your discourse, anything in the way you see the world that sees another person as less than you, worse than you, unworthy of life, safety, protection, and health for their families, I would challenge you to leave enmity behind and make amity the watchword for 2024. It is friendship, it is love, it is brotherhood, it is humanity, and it is kindness. And the more you poke each other in the eye, the more you collude in a downward spiral. So my first word is, what would I hope for 2024? That our world would stop what it's doing with enmity. That's number one. That's far more important than my company. That's far more important than even this technology, because we need redox signaling molecules to change the hearts of people to amity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's number one. Number two is, if conviction is the real octane the real fuel that drives action. I've never been more convicted. I'm not asking your opinion or anyone else's opinion. I have no interest in editorial comments. We will take this company to its full destiny, which has less to do with financial imperatives and way more to do with human moral obligations. We must find the people needing this business opportunity who are stuck in financial cul-de-sacs and put them on the superhighway of their potential. They're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to take this more seriously, that what we have should be shared more aggressively from a place of conviction, compassion, belief, and transformation, because I have witnessed it. It is transforming lives. When we can get that deep into the hearts of the people on this call at a totally different level, where they're liberated by all of the fears and concerns, the doubts and fears that we talked about, and they can move into action from a place of deep, abiding belief and conviction, we'll begin to even touch the full potential we have. And I do not believe that it's something that only I can signal. You know, it needs to cascade like our product does through the organization of the organism, that through all the cells in the system, and awaken in other people that we can be an agent for change in the physical body. We can be an agent of change in the financial circumstances of families. We can be an agent of change for good in the world and amity in the world, not enmity.
Yeah.
If you wanted numbers on it, there is no limit to what we can do. But I will say this, I'm not solving for 1 year at a time. I'm solving for decades at a time. That's a very different business mindset. If someone is going to invest their time, energy, most beloved relationships, and lean into the risks associated with this type of a business model, they need to have every confidence that I'm committed to them and committed to continuity of this business. So I'm careful with the decisions. I'm constantly widening the moat. I'm investing in your future so that you can really feel confident. And that's what a relationship is. That's exactly what relationships are all about. Yeah. They're places of safety and confidence that allow you to dream. No one dreams if they don't feel safe in a relationship. So if you said, what do I see in the future? I see a world where ASEA is a beacon of light for amity, not enmity. I see ASEA as a place deeply committed to sharing from a place of conviction what we know and have, because there is an obligation there. And I see us moving away from an environment where we're transactional and looking for some sort of transactional return, you know, but we look to the inherent value of what we're doing. Yeah. And what it's doing to change us, and that it has value in and of itself. So those are some thoughts. Those are fairly high level and maybe some a little too abstract. But honestly, those are my feelings. And that is that I want to build a business that has the right heart, that's here in 20 years, so that people can be good in a real relationship with it.
But even that, you know, so many companies today, especially with the internet and social media, it's become a popularity contest. And it's all about how fast can I grow, not thinking how long am I going to sustain, how long am I going to be in business. And since day one, ASEA's focus has always to be a great legacy company. And I love the fact that you're not just planning for 1 year, you're planning for decades.
Yeah, and you have to. Otherwise, why would, look, if any of you are looking for the microwavable career, I can tell you right now, the slow roast tastes better, right? Takes a little longer, but I don't like a gas station burrito microwave. You know, you think about the metaphor, you know, like, yeah, anything worth doing needs to be invested for the long haul, particularly when you look at it through the lens of a relationship. Yeah. There are no real relationships that are aimed at short term that you want to invest in. Yeah. You want to invest in something that's long term. Yeah. So I hope to create the environment. I think I blow it every day, if I'm being really honest, but I'm trying to create an environment where people can confidently say, I am in relationship with ASEA. Like, this is a meaningful relationship, and I can invest in this relationship because it doesn't feel fleeting and it doesn't feel temporary. Yeah. And that gets you through a lot of hard times when you feel like I'm in a long-term relationship. Yeah.
I love it. To believe, to belong, and to become. I certainly find my tribe where it's not about removing the challenge. It's finding that tribe that you want to go through the challenge with. And that's certainly what ASEA has been. So, Tyler, this has just been a fantastic conversation. You are an absolute inspiration. And I'm just going to say on behalf of everybody listening here and associates all over the world, just thank you for your tremendous commitment to do this right. and to provide this safe place for us to grow as entrepreneurs and change lives around the world, what we call making a living while making a profound difference in people's lives. So big thank you to you. Can you please pass on our best wishes to your dear father, Vertus? He is so beloved by the ASEA community. And of course, your beautiful mother, Bonnie. Can you please pass on our best wishes and wish them a very happy holidays? And also to you and your beautiful wife, Alison. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tyler, for giving some time tonight.
Thank you, Alan. Much love to everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.